You still have a minute.
Yeah.
We were having fun until that started.
There.
That's the end of the jokes. But it gave you that halo effect.
Yeah, right.
So far, we have nobody trying to phone in with Zoom. We do have a forum with Josh. It's 4 o'clock.
So Ed, how is the traffic coming in? Did you come in from downtown?
I did. It was okay till I got around 5 corners and started trying to work my way from there.
I didn't cut you off. Did I?
I don't think
But
so.
you get up to ramming speed, you just going through.
I was right behind a traffic cop who just gave me a parking ticket because I was 5 minutes over the 2-hour limit. So I was holding my temper a little bit and not speeding up, making them bike a little quicker.
In our little street, New Street, the cars were papered with tickets that said obstructing the sidewalk. Well, we've got a very short sidewalk, but it doesn't go. And of course, Chief Pittman has said, no, that's one part of Massachusetts law we're not going to enforce on Nantucket.
When they were doing India Street the other day, same
Right.
reason.
We've got some very aggressive community service officers.
Yes,
Well, they probably, you know,
not that I've experienced it, but I've seen the tickets up and down.
we were supposed to have enough for baby carrots to roll down the sidewalk. I think that's the rule, but it's impossible in India, some of those streets to pull that off. But, yeah.
One of the things I've found is being able to park in front of the post office. I think because they're enforcing it, the 30-minute
Yeah.
or
Except for Saturday, Alan and I agree with you.
well, I didn't go in.
Yeah.
Saturday,
The
Saturday
markets
farmers
are-
market.
Okay, let me call a meeting of the Roads and Right of Way Committee to order for July 19th, 2022. I declare we have a quorum present. And public comment. Any public comment?
If they could find us, yes.
Seeing none. Oh, wait a minute. I have an item. I was going to put it under old business, but it's really, let me put it under public comment. Now, this is 18 Washington Pond Road. I think we mentioned this last month. I'm not sure. There was, I had gotten a notice from a person I know in the Concom who said that this item was coming up. And this is a bulkhead on Washington Pond Road. It's, if you're familiar with it, as you go into Washington Pond Road, all the way to the end where you can park at the beach on either end and go to your right. As you walk down the beach, as you walk down the beach at low tide, I'm sorry, at high tide, you can't get around. There's the Conservation Commission has before it an application to extend a bulkhead out from an existing pier. And I forget the details, but there's something about the walkway. They want to put a walkway, or not a walkway, a stairway basically to get over to the other side. But it doesn't really make any sense because even at low tide, when I was out there at low tide, you still couldn't get all the way, couldn't get all the way around. So it was on the Concom's agenda for last week sometime. Charlie, thank you. And what it was supposed to be on the agenda at a certain time. they ended up pulling it because they wanted to make a change, so they never discussed it at the last Concom meeting the other day. So the question is, it does deal with access, and it's the chapter 91 stuff that we've been talking about. I asked Ian Gold, that is the person that contacted me and said this was coming up and so on. So he said he would notify me when they are going to put it on the next meeting. So the question is, what role can we play in this? My intention, if they had called it on the agenda the other night, was to simply say, from the Roads and Right of Way Committee, that we've been working on chapter 91, and Jeff Carlson, of course, is there and so on, to get more information about what it is that they're planning to do. So I just put that out there as a comment. Yes. Okay.
I have a couple of questions. Is this Sam Lehrman's property? It used to be the Dorn property,
Yes.
clearing Dorn at one
Yeah.
time?
All the way down.
Okay. So has there ever been access down?
So,
Has there ever been access down there to the public? over
yeah.
there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, at high tide?
I believe so.
At
Years
low
ago-
tide, yes. At high tide, I'm not sure though, but maybe.
I'm not sure either. I'm familiar with that area because I lived on Hinkley Lane back when, back in 1991, 92, 93. And I used to walk that beach all the time.
That's where they had the horses up on top of the hill there.
Yeah.
Is there a chapter 91 license in place for that?
There is an existing chapter 91 because what they did is they put a bulkhead in, this was years ago. And then they had these drawings, and I'm sorry, it's a drawing that they want to.
Oh, Chris, I thought, yeah,
So, and the question is putting a stair up one side of it, but if you can't get down the other side, there's no point in, getting over the drawing.
Would the solution be to put one on both sides? And then,
Well-
or is that not on their property?
As I say, they pulled the application from the meeting last week so they could come back with something new. And I have no idea what they're planning. Was that right?
I have seen the package they prepare for the Concom for 18 Washington Pond Road. And it's been on several agendas. It didn't get through the last one. And there are a number of sort of different but very interesting issues. The applicant is saying he's just maintaining an existing improved structure that was damaged in the storm a year ago. And he's grandfathered. And maybe simplified, but I think if the structure would no longer be approved because it's not protecting any elements of Concom jurisdiction, including a pre-78 structure, and it's not.
That's not.
And so an interesting issue is whether or not it's grandfathered the way the applicant and his attorney claim it is. And the Concom is not at all sure that allowing the maintenance and improvements to go forward should be allowed because it's not approvable any longer. Something like that is part of what's going on.
Exactly, that's right. I forgot that. Yeah, the house, original house was replaced after 1978, so there's no
Yeah.
grandfather.
And I think it's cited
That
specifically,
rule
it's cited.
notwithstanding, let's not use the word grandfather.
Yeah, sorry. It was, I think the location of the house also was
Pre-existing.
changed, but anyway, it's clear that it's not pre-78.
Exactly.
And this is interesting because there might be other structures around the island that were sort of before the wetlands regulations. Are they going to all be grandfathered forever, for example? It raises a lot of issues as erosion continues and sea level rises. this structure is going to continue to be inundated around the edges. And we're at a point where it's where it's at, but you can imagine in 15 years, it might be totally surrounded.
So, as I say, there's nothing really, at this point to do. I'll be notified for the next Concom when they're back on the agenda. And,
You know, one thought we might have is that if we wanted to say something at the Concom meeting, just like that, the roads and right of way is interested in supporting public access within the intertidal zone according to whatever chapter 91 says. And we hope you'll take that into active consideration in your deliberations or something. That may be premature until they decide these
exactly.
more legal technical issues, but that's sort of where I think we're really coming from.
So, it sounds that it's unlikely that they would wrap that particular agenda item in one meeting, if they haven't even really gotten into it. So, maybe it's just, from our point of view, we may have to make a statement that we would, like to look at this new information and comment on it. Once we evaluate it and look at it. Because if they haven't looked at it yet, they certainly aren't going to vote on it that night.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would agree with not likely to, but they have had it on their agenda under discussion for probably 3 open sessions
Yeah.
already. And when the applicant hires, what's the fellow's name, Dan Bailey?
And
You know,
we're talking about the guy, the coastal guy.
the attorney. It'll come, he's the same guy who the applicant, when the dock was in Monomoy, they hired him.
Oh, so they're using him rather than Arthur Reed?
They're
They usually
using him, yes. So that tells you, usually he's there for a purpose.
So you think they'll push it?
I think, well, they have clearly already filed what I think amounts to an opinion, the applicant and his attorney, that this is grandfathered. You really have no jurisdiction to interfere with our maintenance of a structure previously approved and operating, and maintenance is allowed, in effect. But it's not clear that's how we end up.
I don't know.
And whether there's public access now being deprived or not, or what, I mean, that's another story altogether too, because it's, I mean, basically we fall on our purview is public access. Our purview is not whether or not they can maintain it or add steps or anything like that. It's more whether the public can use it.
And they have discussed the steps, which are not there now, coming up on one side and going down the other.
And that's a
Apparently,
convenience for themselves, I would think, right? Who's the convenience of the steps for? So code 91 people can cross? Or is it only for them to get down off the?
No, it's for
line?
people to walk by. And
So maybe the steps as part of an improvement would reinforce the chapter 91 access. I don't know.
Yeah, it might. I mean, we just
It
don't-
might, yeah, exactly, and that was the question. When I spoke with Ian Golding, again, he's a member of the Concom, we discussed chapter 91. I told him, well, he knew that Roads and Right of Way Committee was actively pursuing information in chapter 91. He did, I mentioned that we had difficulty getting from Jeff Carlson any documents as far as the existing chapter 91 licenses. He said, oh, really? You know, he had a bunch of them at the meeting, and apparently there is a book or something. He said it's probably not up to date, but there is some sort of a record.
Leslie and I have seen 2 big fat loose leaf notebooks. And that was when Leslie and I met with Jeff, which was 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, as far as we could tell, Natural Resources is pretty much on top of new applications because they get, through the Concom, the state notifies Nantucket through What they can't find, and it's our frustration, is what are the properties that should have chapter 91 that don't?
Exactly.
They justify, because I visited Jeff as well, seen the books, I put them on. I circulated to committee members some of the information. If if they are receiving notices from the state, we simply ask them to share those notices with us, they're public documents. And I'm not aware of how you are.
You made that suggestion before.
Yeah.
We have asked, and, oh, it's like throwing a pebble into the ocean.
And it's mind boggling. And I think when you talk to Jeff, he says, yes, we'll figure out a way to do that, but it hasn't happened. It doesn't take a lot of time. Here it is. Done.
He's had some staff changes, but I don't know whether that makes.
I just have to keep
Like anything on Nantucket, it's easier going forward than going backwards.
But that's a good way, that's all we're saying. When the notice comes in, we're going forward, just share that.
Yeah, and they should start a new kind of digital file. There should be a way to digitally do it without it, and then go down and go.
All right, so anyway, we'll keep an eye on that particular situation at 18 Washington Street, or Washington Road, sorry. We'll follow up with Jeff Carlson again about those records. I mean, they're,
Well, if we meet here, if we continue to meet here, he's right there.
yes,
So it might be easier access.
exactly. Exactly. Good.
Show up a little earlier the next week.
Right, and we can invite him to come, or we'll just go sit in his office and have a meeting there.
Right, exactly.
If I'd known about it, I would have taken that 10 minutes and said I was going to talk to Jeff. Right?
Yeah.
Waited the extra 10 minutes to leave town.
Okay, next item, approval of minutes from our June meeting, June 21st meeting. Any corrections?
Good to me. I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, second, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
May I suggest, Alan, that
Roll call vote, yes indeed. Lee,
I,
Rick,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and
Aye.
Is there anyone on the Zoom, by the way?
no.
Okay.
So if you look up the panel on the right, town committee is the computer to your right.
Right.
And I'm on board in case somebody says, Lee, can you bring
You're
up
the host. Right?
a GIS map or something? So
Got it. I just wasn't sure because I remember even Snooki said he was going
Yeah.
to come down there. I thought, but I don't know.
okay, minutes approved.
And
Kendall Brand,
obviously has not signed it.
as far as sidewalk and road projects, unfortunately, I heard Lover's Lane, that we've worked so hard to get approved and the money and all that sort of thing put aside. Apparently, they rebid it, and the bid is way over whatever the original bid was, so it's back to the drawing board. So I just found this out yesterday.
Price of labor, price of the asphalt, or both?
What?
Price of the labor, or price of the asphalt, or both?
I gave specifics, just the bid was, it ballooned.
Right.
It was a lot higher than whatever the original one would be. So,
I'm with the Boy Scouts involved. Sounds
Tom, road surfacing, asphalt is a mixture of tar and aggregate. And tar is made up of petroleum products.
Right.
And you've seen the pump,
Right.
Yeah.
which by the way, is coming down.
Well, in theory,
yeah.
it's a hard time backing up there. That's talking for a while.
Alan, sticking with the sidewalks, we were talking previously about asking think it's David Gray, on the sewer rollout, where they're gonna do curb to curb overlays, and they're putting the new interceptor from C Street. Um, Is there a timeline that we should be doing that, so we can at least get in? We talked about the fact that they're gonna be working on sidewalks and stuff, and how does that go with that?
Bill, this is a partial answer because the question's been asked before in meetings in which I was in attendance. And one, the force main repair is being delayed till the fall. Obviously, not the time or place to do it. And two, sewer, water, and other town entities are working together, so they only have to open the street once. And then repave the whole thing. Your question about, is that going to include sidewalks? I don't know.
But we had talked at a previous meeting, if I remember, seriously, that we should at least, since we are concerned about sidewalks and access and stuff, and there are several sections that sidewalks are questionable or whatever, it would seem that we should be at least in the loop on the discussion instead of coming in after the road made plans, just like we keep asking about Pleasant Street down past
Mhm.
Redendus is.
Right.
So,
Been a while since somebody called it reviews.
I agree with Bill because I watched the one on North Liberty Street during pandemic lockdown and even thereafter, and they still haven't finished paving the whole project. Nor striping it either. But when they did repair the sidewalks, and I know we're not into the sidewalk beautification committee, but they did such a mix of materials. If you drive down that road, you'll see there's asphalt sidewalk, there's concrete sidewalk, there's brick sidewalk. I mean, it's like every material known to man, whereas they had the perfect opportunity to just go brick or whatever. But
pick one.
yeah, they just kind of, if it didn't have it, they did the cheapest thing they could, which is either asphalt or maybe it was concrete at the time. I don't know.
I'm going to suggest that we don't spend a lot of time guessing at what the town's going to do. And that you ask Libby to ensure that Patrick Reed comes to one of our meetings.
Yeah,
You or whoever succeeds.
Yeah, I want to address that.
that would be a good idea. And Pleasant Street, look at the way they planted the new trees. They planted the new trees back, this
Exactly.
Yes.
in anticipation perhaps of this.
Well, or a realization of where the boundary of the layout is.
Well, partially that, but it's further into their property than they needed it, which is rare on Nantucket because most people,
I know.
you plant the tree in front of their property, right?
I did speak with Mark Willett, the Water Commission at, I chair the Water Commission. And Mark talked at some length about the work that's coming up. And he and the sewer department are working very closely together as far as plans so that they aren't, one's doing a project and then they have to tear it up a year later and so on. So that's a good thing.
Well, they did do a good job of doing that. I mean, they came down, they had an interesting way of doing it. They tear up one side of the street and go down to do both. And then they come back and later they tear up the other side of the street it causes double chaos at the same spot. But at least they don't open the road twice. Yes.
But he also mentioned this project, the main sewer line project is going to be a major upset. We're talking about this, they're going to start this fall. And he said that the traffic and everything, because there's so much length to what, where they're going and how they're going to route it. And if you've seen the pipe that they're putting in,
Right
it's
through town.
a big piece of pipe that they're putting in. And, so anyway,
And you're gonna have a veranda house being demolished and all this at the same time this autumn. And talk about chaos. That area of town around C Street all over the center is gonna be a chaos corner.
And Mark also mentioned that they've been, the issue as far as the paving, of course, the local pit where they make the stuff, they just can't keep up. Because there's so much work to do. The town is backed up a little bit on some of the stuff that's going on there, but anyway, it's gonna be an interesting fall. Once they start this main sewer.
Time to go to London.
Yeah, right, well. it's hard to be cool. Okay,
I've got a place.
Now we're talking. You know, all I have to do is fly and get there and I got a place. Ooh, sounds pretty nice.
Share of expenses.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like an add-on to me.
okay. Next item. This is our annual reorganization. As you know, every July, all the committees, commissions, boards, and so on have to reshuffle officers. And I think the way I want to do it, let's see, we have a forum, so we'll do it whatever.
So everybody's not here to study that.
Right, what
That's usually.
I want to be careful how I introduce this, so I don't, say something stupid. So anyway, I would invite the nominations for officers.
I have a thought on this. I think we've been doing this so many years, and we need to make sure we have enough help and support. And one way to do that, we have a chair and a vice chair and a secretary. And one thought is simply to reverse the roles of the chair and the vice chair. It gives the always the vice chair, and give a new way to get moving and different thought process, and you would be there to provide all the necessary backup and context and smoothing our way through town administration.
Right.
So that's one thought. And the secretary, if he wishes, I would bless.
Okay,
That's a tough one.
I'll get to that in just 30 seconds. The role of past chair is sometimes made official for that very reason that Rick has just mentioned. And that the past chair is part of, particularly in larger organizations, part of the executive committee that sets agendas and so forth.
I think that'd be very helpful here. If you go through this kind of a.
Do you want to make that as a motion?
I'd make that a motion that we switch the roles of the chair and the vice chair, which means we nominate Bill Greeter as the chair, Alan as the vice chair, and all the candidates we just mentioned, and Lee as secretary, as he has been, for the best minutes in the town.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion, discussion on the motion.
Because otherwise you'd be creating another position and do a past chair position. Right.
Well, yeah,
Of sorts. Well, you know.
vice president is,
Right.
that's fine.
No, I know.
Further discussion?
I'm happy to keep going.
That's the key to this whole process.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor of the motion? Unanimous, great. Congratulations, Bill.
You no longer have to worry about saying something stupid. That's my.
I mean, that's the best way in an organization to do transmission, though, is actually
Exactly.
train your
Well-
replacement, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly am gonna rely on your liaison experience as well as your schmooze ability to keep us on even keel. So,
All right, well, I just to comment, I first of all, thank you for the motion and thank you for accepting and all that sort of thing. As I said in the email I sent out after our last meeting, the main thing, on this committee, there's a lot of follow-up. There's, the two main items are putting the agenda together and then the follow-up from the meeting prior to. And they did, it's a lot of phone calls, emails, and that sort of thing. And I find that particularly with this committee, because, we're involved in so many different projects, that, yeah. So anyway, I think my intention is to be active on the committee, because, I know a lot of people and that sort of thing.
I
So
met him
anyway,
at the post office, and you can't get 2 steps without somebody coming up and saying hello to Alan.
That's why you can't go away.
Oh, no.
We're structuring this so you stay around.
You need the
Yeah,
institutional knowledge.
right.
You need some institutional knowledge.
Yeah, no, that's
Selling.
really the fun part of the job. Well, not so much the fun part, but, I've gotten to know all the people that we deal with at the town level, certainly Libby and Erica and, everybody at the planning office and that sort of thing. And I've worked hard over the years to maintain a positive relationship with everyone. So, I find you get more accomplished with good words.
Usually they say with honey.
Well, until you get to the point where you don't remember their names and things, then you're still able to
Yeah,
be
right.
pretty effective. It's when you forget who's who.
Well, that's one of
And
the
then
things-
that's time to step back.
Yeah, I know. One of the things I'm noticing as far as my own memory, for the last couple of years, numbers have been, can't remember number sequences and so on. And it seems like names are another thing, I'll be talking to someone or something like that. But part of it, anyway, that's a whole other subject. So,
So I'll tell Alan an anecdote. I jump from one activity to another, and sometimes it's abrupt. For example, I'm going to the mid-year meeting of my professional society in September. God, I know this guy. I know this guy. Hi, I'm Lee Saperstein,
yeah,
with the fond hope that he'll say, yeah, and I'm Ed Gillum.
Right.
And what does he say? He grabs my hand and says, yeah, I know.
You want to say thanks for nothing.
yeah, right.
I remember your name. That's what he says.
I've tried that too. so. Okay, projects and goals.
I'm
for-
sorry, Alan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
Oh, I thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman.
Also, this is an instant hand up. I wasn't sure. Wait till the next meeting.
That's right, I have to learn my place.
Right, I believe the next step is projects and goals for FY23. Beach access map, chapter 91 projects, goals and next steps. Phil is chugging along with sort of his foot in a couple of these different things. Rick has been also digging up on some 91. So the goals are sort of the same, very lofty aspirations of trying to get something concrete so we can move on. I think the Chapter 91 project is going to be a project in fluidness, motion, because we learn something and then we find out we don't know something. So we aren't really making a lot of headway there. And I'm wondering, we just a second ago were talking about trying to get copied on the new applications. I'm wondering if we don't need to make, we know the Concom, so I'm wondering if we just need to, or if it will help, we need to formally ask it with a memo from us saying, as we move forward, trying to get a handle on chapter 91 project, it would be very helpful if you would please include us going forward.
Bill, I agree.
I think you do that, and then,
Chair's gonna write it?
Oh, yeah. So I think we'll send that to Concom. That'd be the place
Well,
to go.
I think, I'm not sure who you should send it to. If we're advisory to the board, is it sometimes helpful to jump up top, and let them know what you'd like to do, or just go direct?
I think
Alan,
go
you
direct,
may be
and-
better thinking about that than I would.
I would say go direct and copy the top.
That might be.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that
Sorry,
way,
and which way around?
I would go direct. I think you should.
Direct to whom?
Well, I think you should go to the Concom, but also copy, like you
Yes.
say, the top, so they know that they can backstop you if ever anything comes up.
Exactly. I do that because, well, I try to do as a matter of course, send the memo, like for Jeff Carlson, for example, send him a memo. And I would copy usually Erica, because I find that Erica is the most on top of everything in the whole, and I have a very good relationship with Erica too.
To further that, Bill, yes to Erica for distribution to the select. To Erica Mooney for distribution to the select.
Yeah, they probably should be copied on what's going on. I guess, right?
So send it to Eric for distribution of select board.
Just let them know that we're working.
Yeah, that's one of the hesitations I have sometimes as far as the select board. I want to wait for the big items, something where we have something to present and something to.
Well, with that in mind, in the chapter 91, it's nice starting a going forward notification to us thing. But we've got a couple of projects on our list
Exactly.
that were reliant on chapter 91 licenses. See, the lighthouse to the new park at the Rotary.
The harbor wall.
Yeah.
So we ought to focus kind of on the pieces that mean most to our projects, I guess, if that makes any sense. Because, I mean, there's a lot of chapter 91 licenses around Nantucket, all over the place, but,
And you make a good point, but I don't think we should give up asking for the
No.
notification.
no,
I
I agree.
I think that in our projects list, we have Harbor Walk down separately.
Right, no, and I agree with you, but what I mean is that making for the big ticket item that Alan's talking about in this other context, that maybe we focus on ones. If the further notification is needed, I guess you could say, and we do agree that the big ticket items merit the notification, then maybe that could be the items that trigger that notification.
So who do you want to send this to?
I think, well, it should definitely go to Jeff Carlson as the head of the Concom. And I think Erica as well. I'm not sure I would ask her to send it on to the select board.
And this is relevant, so we're working.
Well,
You could leave that up to her.
we've sent memos
Wow.
before and nothing's happened.
Well, no,
So they use it.
that's not really true. Erica,
No, I mean, only on this one issue. Oh, many things have happened, but on chapter 91 and Jeff giving us copies of notices, that hasn't happened.
sure, yeah, no, that's.
I guess we're struggling to figure out what makes Jeff send it to us.
My-
Is that really where we're going with this?
Yeah, my assumption is that anything I send to Erica, Erica's going to let Libby know.
Okay.
But as far as writing direct to the select board, there are certain items where that is, I think, indeed appropriate. I'm just trying to think of the taking of, not Step Lane, but
You talking about Stone Alley?
no, the one downtown, it goes from Orange down to Union Street.
Stone.
No,
Oh, Stone
Alley.
Alley.
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Stone Alley, for
Yeah.
example, that went directly to Erica, to the select
Well, that's
board.
important.
So, because they're the decision makers on that. in order to get that in front of them. And there have been a couple of other items, but anytime there's something that demands select board attention, then it should go directly to Libby and the select board, or actually Erica, Libby and the select board.
So we're suggesting, to get back to your specific question, that the memo is, the highest person addressed is Jeff Carlson,
Right.
the Natural Resources Administrator, whatever his title is, with a CC to Aaron.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not you want to CC the,
Just to be formal, Jeff is chief staff person for the Concom. The Concom has a chair.
That's true.
But he's also, he's the chief, he's administrator of staff,
Right.
which is, I guess, where the.
He's key,
Right.
but he is not the head of the conservation.
right, we're not sending this directly to the Concom. So
Right. Exactly.
at the moment, yeah. Unless we want to send it CC to them as well.
I think we've been kicked down the road so much. I was just going to send it to the commission, CC Jeff.
That's fine.
Yes.
I don't object,
I mean,
that's okay.
I don't think, I think it's not fruitful to send to the select board because they're just going to say, well, that's really a Concom issue.
Right, exactly. Yeah, oh, well, that would work. Send it to the commission and the company chair.
Good.
Um,
That's even better.
Yeah,
And also.
I would still copy.
And copy Erica.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna do that anyway, just. She's the glue.
one of the things with chapter 91, there's so much activity going on, so much building and construction going on the waterfront. There's, and there's the Washington Street, and there's that other big monster house at Washington.
Well, the thing is that if you think of it, not to interrupt, sorry, the, now that you just made it, sorry, I'm sorry, but as you go from the lighthouse, Rampart Lighthouse, there's a tremendous amount of work going on Easton Street right now, a tremendous amount, and there's more to come. And then, so that's a big path there, and then we get around to where you got Petrol Landing. And then you go along Washington Street and you've got a wacky house that just moved across the street to free up what the land bank owns that land, I believe, right? And then there's a couple people that, are still kind of there.
Wacky house, the land bank purchase, and they're gonna move, they've got 3 years.
And that's the one next to the Francis Street, right?
Yeah,
So you're getting closer that way.
we're getting closer.
Then you get down to Valero's kind of impasse, down to Poverty Point or whatever they call it. And then you gotta work your way, you gotta finally get to Otis's, basically, I guess, you know what I mean, to get to the goal. So as these projects are being done, we should be really vigilant of what's happening with 91 licenses on these big projects. That's what I'm saying.
Long term, everything Ed says is true, and then you have to fill in with projects that will be coming down the Pike Road channel for coastal resilience,
Right.
which could be major. They make what we're doing now look like
Right.
sandpit,
Well,
kid sandpit.
and you got our island home. I forgot to mention the whole our island home and that whole piece and marine lumber, which may or may not be there
Exactly.
forever.
Now, those we can go around because there is actually a roadway, or on the maps, there's a roadway that goes from Spruce Street all the way around to the Overson property.
There's a right of way.
No, I'm sorry,
I'm not sure there's a road,
Yeah.
because I once walked it,
Right.
and I assure you, it's got the best boot sucking mud.
Yeah.
I've ever
I was about to
seen.
say hip boots.
Not a road.
Yeah,
I would say hip boots, right? It's-
when I go down that way, I usually at low tide and in the winter time, what's
It's frozen.
The beach access map. We talked about trying to get that included. Access points and some of the different groups that are putting maps out like Land Bank and all that. did we have a discussion about that, see if they could plug those locations in? Was that after Nathan did something?
That was at last month's meeting, we
Right.
discussed that. And part of the issue, the reason it was on the agenda last month is because I've never really, well, I'm not really clear about what the project, what's the final result that we want to have here. What information on the map, we have the beach access, the trails, so I think those are decisions we need to make. What kind of information do we want to put on the map? It started out with simply beach access.
You mean what kind of beach access it is, whether it's just walking access, pull your daily access, that kind of stuff? And is there a beach at the end of the day?
I'm going to suggest that another note or phone call is to Nate and say, look, you've got a lot of material here. Do you have thoughts about what's going to go up on the website? Do you want to meet with us to discuss what's going to go up on the website? And then from the website,
Create an overlay.
well, I was gonna, yeah, but I was gonna say access through social media, use of QR codes at critical points, so that we can go into smartphones. I don't do any of this, but I understand that this is the way of the world.
It is the way of the future and it's good, but it's also handy to have even like the old beach driving map,
Exactly.
something like that, or that you can hand out to just the general public so they can know. I mean, a lot of people don't know this stuff exists, you know what I mean? So when they come to the island, there's all sorts of people wandering around not knowing the rules.
It's interesting, I mean, this summer I'm driving the shipwreck shuttle. And it has been noted that it could be, that it was a wreck driving the shipwreck shuttle, but I think all worse. But one of the things I noticed in the Information Bureau, now it's called Visitor Center, but anyway, old habits, is the bevy of maps that they have from different sources. And invariably, okay, they say, well, this is the best map. And so,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna ask them the next time I get a moment, is why do they consider map 1, 2, or 3 the best map? Is that, sometimes it's the Young's bicycle map, sometimes it's the walking trails map. So maybe it depends on the question that was asked.
Yeah, I would think, yeah.
They have a tough time.
That wasn't what it was.
They see, you see them sort of like looking, which map should I grab? And then, and after the people get the map, then you see them outside trying to figure out where they are and where the heck they are and whatever, so.
Well, they all come from New York, where the streets are north, south, east, west.
They don't do this.
Our streets were laid
I'll
out.
ask that
relative to
one.
the-
Right.
So do we need to check with
Well,
Nathan?
I think that's the
Yeah.
next step, because I get the feeling, despite Alan's concern, that he's got a lot of material and it's really a function of what he wants to do next. And that we guide him.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, because he's the keeper of the data.
Yeah, exactly. And Nathan has been very cooperative. Anytime, I've asked him a question, he's no problem.
He gets into certain projects. This might be one he's interested in too.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of stuff he does is pretty numbing, but
So I think part of it is having a clearer idea of what we want to end up with.
Do you want to check with Nathan on that? If you had that, side of that conversation with him?
Sure.
I think we want to end up with a blend of everything we're talking about. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce is marketing through social media to a younger demographic coming, okay? Full stop. They come shorter and they're young. And so, yes, they'd probably be QR code, people like that, but not everybody does a QR code when they're on vacation and you're wandering around and a trail map. I mean, people know, there's still people that like to have a
Yeah.
visual or something,
And it doesn't do any good if you don't have cell coverage, so.
Right.
And that's right here.
That's spotty.
In In talking about coastal resilience, Ed mentioned our island home. Yesterday, Alan and I participated in the summer forum, during which Town Manager Gibson gave a rundown of all the things that they're looking at, including a consultancy on redoing our island home, potentially moving it to somewhere in proximity to Sherburne, so that we can centralize certain things.
I think that's what they want.
And then moving the senior center to our island home with the open questions of demolish the existing building and build one that is a good working center for people, or simply renovate of the existing building, again, with the idea that it become useful for a senior center. And she said that we're looking to the consultants to tell us what's the best option.
Which is, at the end of the day, everything we're building.
Yeah, so I was going to say.
50 years now, I'll have to build somewhere else.
New, old, and other business.
I know, as far as the senior center, I don't think I'm gonna live long enough to.
It might be nice to have someone from that committee, because to come to our committee, especially when we're talking chapter 91. Because a lot of the chapter 91 issues are going to become new points.
Well, exactly, no, the land bank bought that house that sits in front of it, and we're gonna remove that house. So,
That takes care of that. chapter. That's just keep buying.
yeah, exactly.
So, number 5, goals. We had talked about, we sort of been each month resting a few seconds on the 4 projects that we have on every agenda list. And the last, I remember the Public Way Monument Project, we're trying to find if there were any that we could actually pull a trigger on and actually put them in. I think we were going to check with DPW to see what was available, or there were some markers already around, trying to make a decision whether it be flat markers or stand up. So I'm thinking, you know, of all these different projects that we have here, that we grab one of them, try to take a bite out of it, and then move it back down the list and do something else.
Exactly, yeah.
So when you look at this thing, it's just like, well, do we do this, do we do that, or whatever. So I think we need to pick something and then work it to death and then move on.
Good idea.
Like pick one in each category kind of thing and try to get it done.
Regarding the public way monuments that you mentioned, I've mentioned it several times to DPW. Right now, they're having difficult enough time just smelling the road edges and stuff, so. What needs to happen, because those monuments are heavy, they weigh 400 to 500 pounds, and so on. When we put in the 30, I think there are 36 upright ones that we put in. Lee and I were out with shovels. We had,
It's Joe Michaelinger and Frank Holgate. who did
yeah,
the
exactly.
Most digging. I supervised.
Well, we went out,
Gotta have
Lee
a
and I
foreman.
went out, we marked the spot, put up flags, then when we were putting them in, it was Dave Nisco, who had the, he had the Bobcat. So he could lift him up with a Bobcat, put him in his trailer, and that's how we cut those.
Well, beyond that, Alan, you and I have gone around, I know you put a number of monuments in more recently, and we do have a list of not many, 4 or 5 more that need to go in, right?
So that would be a project that we could, a couple of months ago, I was going to call Dave Visco again and see if he would $100 or something.
In November.
there, so I'll pay for it just to get it in the ground. You're right.
So do we have a list of those 4 or 5 that we could sort of?
I've just written myself a note to send you what I've got. for-
And then we can touch base with Dave or his uncle and squeeze his uncle.
Well,
and squeeze his uncle.
DPW at one time said, oh, that's our job, we'll help you with that. As Alan points out, we have had in different organizations, we've had good presentations from Steve Larson, who said, I'm swamped, and I know I'm not doing a good job of communicating because I just don't have the time to respond to the hundreds of emails. And Takara, I hope he's asking you to at least send a form letter. Got your note. Thank you for your input. We'll get back to you when we have a chance. Just so that people know that they've been heard.
I mean, I've heard some frustrating folks talking about just that they sent correspondence, not just to one department, but several departments, and at least it's just common courtesy to say, thanks for your message, we'll look into it, we'll work on whatever. But absent of that, it just fuels the fire that the town doesn't care. So I think the town can help itself. Every department can help itself by responding.
Just having a one liner that they can punch a button and they're set.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least they know you know, it's kind of like when the post,
That's
you just, you know, the mail got
They're
there.
a package thing. And I can't hear you.
Start emailing it. That way, like, the general, like, we see it, like, we want to us, and then we would know, and if it's something that we need to address.
So copy the general email.
The
right?
the DPW. It's just DPW at nantucket-ma.gov, right?
Yeah,
Is that we all have access to? So when things come up that are urgent, we can usually get somebody's ear about it.
So then that's a .ma.gov.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's good. That would be a good copy source. Someone will pick it up. What about the monuments, the move monuments? What about the 2 that need to be moved?
Oh,
The
on
moving.
Westchester Station, yes, yeah, those are on the.
Because they're there, they're just gonna be moved.
Yeah, they just need to be hooked up and, well, just needed.
Well, I know.
Same thing.
Kind of.
So the big mystery is what happened to the 2 monuments at either end of the railway grade that's now the new bike path at Duck Pond Concert. The
Yeah.
contractor pulled them and we have no idea where they went.
We talked with, Brian.
Are they in the
Oh,
pond?
Mike Burns,
Mike
Mike
Burns.
Mike didn't know where
He
they were.
didn't know where they were.
Are they in the
We
pond?
do have additional monuments. We have 6 monuments that are at, behind the building at the 4 or 2 fairgrounds. And there are also some flush monuments there as well. I believe there are 5 or 6 flush monuments. So we do have the monuments. I check them periodically to make sure that.
No one's talked that. But no one's talked that.
Yeah, right.
I want to bring up one other thing that's probably in here somewhere, but maybe not. Is the kind of still jotting down a note of the road obstructions as we go around? Because I'm noticing some wild road obstructions these days. I mean, not only are people putting rocks down, some of them are actually putting like Belgian blocks that are soldered like this.
Yeah.
I mean, they're looking like Delaney's got one that, I mean, it's like a fortification. But it's very obviously in the roadway.
There's been wooden posts installed too that I've seen. like, that they
and the-
look like they
and the
look like
short
fence
little ones
posts.
that
Yeah,
in the dark are actually kind of dangerous. You
Yeah.
don't know where they're at.
and we're talking a lot about that.
I just dropped Priscilla off at Meyer Common, and there on that road where this aggressive landscaping was right up to the asphalt, it's been redone. It's been lowered and sight lines have been improved.
Nice.
We lose a lot and then we win.
Right.
So where was that on the way to my account?
Yeah, is that my comment road? I think it is, or West my comment road.
West Bank.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the former chair
Have to
of
turn the corner.
of Liberty
West.
Insurance, who was Liberty Mutual, was causing Alan had hair and it was dark before that.
I know.
But you can see on,
We sold his house.
on Cliff Road, if you come up North Liberty, take a left on Cliff Road. There's a bunch of houses there that just got through getting all spiffed up. And they put in new lawns or whatever. Now they're putting in those tall metal posts that have ridges on them, so you normally would take a chicken wire fence and hook over it. And they're right up to the pavement. The lawn itself has got to be encroached on the property. And so it's interesting, all the contractors that were working on that property parked on those very strips in front of somebody else's house. And, you know, all these folks have their lawn done.
But I think in last month's minute, we were to send emails to the chair listing our favorite encroachment locations.
There we go.
And then we could build a committee list from that. So we can send those to Bill.
They're all over the place. I mean, I drove around the island from the Othens and so on, and every time I'm on the road, I see something new. So,
I mean, almost like we need to take the encroachments and categorize them, line of sight versus just encroachment.
Start off with safety,
Line of
yeah.
sight ones.
The current policy for the town incorporates some suggestions that we made 5-6 years ago. Joe Michaelinger worked up a very elaborate amendment to the policy. As he said, remember, friendship steps on historic houses are in fact an encroachment into the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And yet, these are pre-existing. And so there's got to be a way that we acknowledge that, a way that we can maybe license new ones where we think they're appropriate, and then a way of telling homeowners, this is inappropriate, please remove it or we will.
well, there was a whole policy that was
Yeah.
adopted by the select board.
The select board's input from council moderated things, but it's still, they amended it, and it is a fairly aggressive policy. There is an encroachment committee that meets. Ken Logrand goes to it. And then Steve goes.
I think we ought to have a
I
member
didn't
of our
realize
committee
that
go into
encroachment
that.
committee. Jeez, you mean we've been doing all this work?
I'm willing to bet they haven't met for the last 2 or 3 months because they've got so many other things to do. But there is an agreement that they would get together and deal with it.
That would be another memo, is to ask for a, ex officio membership, so somebody from this committee could show up and be invited.
To check that out.
Actually, you're right, if there is indeed an encroachment committee, someone here should at least be kind of privy to the minutes or something.
Bill, it may be the best way in is Ken Logrand.
Well, I think I'm gonna go to Erica and ask for a copy of the encroachment policy that the selectmen use.
Oh, it's on the web.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah, I think we have a copy on our website.
okay.
It seems to me it's a little extensive, and I think
Yeah.
it makes it difficult to work through all those steps
Well,
unless you can short circuit it by asking somebody.
I'm
Then,
gonna,
like Bill said, there's a priority list of like safety, line of sight. I mean, the safety could be on the ground, it could be the line of sight either way.
Yeah.
And there's a fair number of hedges that are really a problem to some of the corners and down. I mean,
A lot of site envelope
yes,
issues with the,
oh yeah,
I'll,
where they can dip them down or
I'll go to
something.
the
They
town
can just cut them
website,
at
see
the
if I
line.
can get that in a bicycle everywhere, so at our next meeting, we can what they're coming up with, we're prioritizing the encroachment. Because I think it'd be good to understand what the policy is and what they have for actionable things that we.
The policy, as I recall, is I think only 2 or 3 pages, and it was very explicit in dealing with the types of different types of encroachments. And so it's been a long time since I've looked at it. Oh, and then, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we have a new contact person at DPW. Charlie Palachi has been replaced by.
Will Delerba. I'm not replacing
I was
Charlie.
gonna say,
I'm not replacing Charlie. But
Just on this committee.
we are both Stockbridge School of Agriculture alumni.
Yeah.
But I'll be coming to these meetings now.
All right.
I'm the new permit services coordinator for the DPW.
So the liaison.
Yes.
Great.
The liaison.
can you,
I will say Charlie told me not to take notes because Lee's minutes are the best minutes. So I did hear that already.
if you can just leave me your contact info.
Yeah.
And then I'll make sure that
Absolutely.
Lee and the members get it, so.
Sure.
We can feel a little- Thank you.
I'll do that now. Before I forget.
All right, so if we, my suggestion is that we focus as our first main goal would be the monument project, and just really tackle that and see what we do, at least take a bite out of that.
Great.
And lessen it a bit. Do you have additions to that?
Where are we on some of the sidewalk projects? I mean, in terms of, I know we have our hit list. I mean, is there any progress being made on sidewalk projects?
Backing up,
Oh.
Looks like it's been updated, but maybe only the name of the select board.
Yeah.
14.
2014 was our input, 2021 was select board rather than board of selectmen.
Would it be possible, like, put a link on our minutes or anything like that to this? Or would it be possible to include a link to this in our minutes,
Oh, sure.
maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, I just use the search function to get it quickly, but it's under the administration, the menu to government administration policies.
Got it.
Should be removed immediately, but that will be billed for the work done.
Yeah, but all this is, as you know, it's like, it doesn't work that way. I mean,
So
$200.
number 1 was emergencies, number 2 is they're in the way. Number 3 are the historical ones.
Right. I think they're becoming more numerous rather than less numerous.
There's a lot more.
Yeah,
And for the past year and a half, I've been working for Bartlett Tree, and half of my job is driving around and finding somewhere to park.
right.
And I noticed just more and more and more.
How many irrigation heads you have to park on top of?
Yeah.
They're in the road, really. So,
But like elaborate stone posts and just all sorts of things right up on the road.
It looked nice, but.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we're getting near the end. Do you want to, I was going to put out the question, do we want to meet?
Okay.
via Zoom?
So I know, like Snooki really likes the idea of meeting in person. But I also like I personally like the hybrid, but I'd like to hear what everybody else says. It'll keep our secretary working when he goes to have a spot of tea. For how many times he's gonna go next year. I know there's 3 meetings this winter that I'm gonna be off on. And according to Erica, can't chair a meeting via Zoom, but certainly the vice chair could. And you can vote through the Zoom process. So I think a hybrid would allow us to keep going. And if all of a sudden this room wasn't available, we could still function totally hybrid.
And you might have COVID thing crop up again and make it a necessity anyway. I mean, so you just don't know.
We do want to hear from Will if he's got anything to report. He's come all this way. So let's finish. Let's finish.
So there's
future
other thoughts on the hybrid process?
I don't mind, as long as it's recorded.
Yeah.
That's important. And if you can participate by Zoom, I think that's a great.
That's why I agree with Zach.
Okay. Wait. you okay with it?
I think we all agree. Now, the reason that I am not broadcasting my typing on minutes, but I do that, is our technical support person said, but that's what's going to be on the recording.
Right.
So I am typing away like crazy here, but the recording will actually see what's on the screen.
Okay, cool. So, a new liaison,
Yes,
new likeness.
I don't have much to report today. I've been here for a week, but I wanted to come here and listen and have open ears today. I want to read a lot more about chapter 91. I know a little bit about what's going on there, but I've never read the bylaws or anything. So I'd like to-
You'll find our minutes are quite detailed and they're, well, you can find them on
Yeah,
the site, so.
yeah.
And there was a link to a chapter 91 forum at one time, which could become quite
I think Ed's got a very important point for somebody who's new to the whole process. Use your search engine for Mass Chapter 91.
Yeah.
And they've got, they being the Department of Environmental Protection, Environmental Policy.
right?
Yeah, it's DEP of some sort.
Yeah.
And they've got some very, very good information there. The problem is they say things that aren't quite accurate.
Sure.
If the public wants to review chapter 91 licenses, they're more than welcome. Oh yeah, once a week for 1 hour, we open up our office.
Right.
Or something.
Right.
But in terms of where it comes from, how it gets all the way back to the 17th century colonial ordinances, the privileges of being able to walk on the wetted sand. These are all well explained. He gives a good back.
Yeah, yeah. I've been very familiar with chapter 87. I'm a tree person by background. But
Well, thanks for joining us and
Yeah.
look forward to.
absolutely.
That brings up an important point. Since I live on New Street, which is not very far from York Street,
Mhm.
and a good colleague lives on York Street and was wild about the tree being cut down. I attended the tree advisory committee meeting, which they talked about whether or not that was a town tree. The conclusion was that it was. But right in the middle of the meeting, somebody says, you know, how come the town of Nantucket doesn't have a stump grinder?
Yeah,
Because we've got all these cut down stumps and nobody's doing anything about getting rid of them.
we have a stump grinder on the, we're looking at buying one.
Bill, because you've asked about the one on Pleasant Street, right in front of the bank,
How about
Pleasant Orange.
Westchester? There's a huge elm stump.
Right,
on,
right, the big one on that, big one
Yeah.
on Westchester.
Yeah.
Three of us have a place that was supposed to be at 15 minutes, so that being said, think our next meeting is August the 16th. Is that the date?
The third Tuesday.
That is it.
Um, And for lack of other information, we just at this point say it's going to be this room, same time, same channel.
Why does it say annual reorganization next to the August?
It's because when I was transferring, when I put the agenda together,
Oh.
I cut and pasted, and I
Okay.
didn't cut.
I was
that.
just looking, okay, I was.
I had put it
Gotcha.
earlier in the agenda and I forgot to cut it out of that.
Gotcha.
part.
All right.
Bill, I would remind people that
Go,
the
sir.
summer forum was held. It is, was recorded and should be accessible. Before I met Charles for the first time.
It is, I viewed it this morning.
Okay, and there's a lot of good information about what's happening in the town and where they're going. There may be pieces, as I suggested, for example, with our island home, that could be useful for our community. There was a statement made that Patrick Reed is the new transportation planner, that he's working off island. Bill, I would charge you with asking someone to make sure he attends one of these.
Right.
He's
I
an
have-
ex officio member.
He also
I
showed up.
have his email address. I was going to invite him to this meeting, but because we were in a new location and other.
You want to beam that over to me and I'll ask him. All right.
I'm pretty sure it's P. Reed at Nantucket's -ma.gov. Yeah, that's the way we construct emails.
Yeah, he's supposed to show up on Nantucket, I think, once a month or something, at least, or something like this. He has, there, in his contract, it's a lot of stuff he does is in Boston anyway, right?
I've had a couple of email contacts with him and it's very good at follow-up. But I got a phone call from email about my comment row down there. And so it wasn't really something for roads and right of way, it was more traffic safety. So I emailed Erica. Erica contacted what's his name, Rudy? It's Patrick, no, well, what, yeah, the new planning,
Transportation.
and he wrote an email back to Wilson, me, to Erica, so it's off to get started.
Anything else? That being said, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call. Aye.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
And aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And thank you.
No
Thanks.
problem.
Thanks for coming.
I look forward to,
And you notice that the town is, I know, I live on North Liberty Street. There's a number of towns on North Liberty Street.
yes.
And they have, after that last meeting, the town, the tree advisory board, they came and put the little
Put the
things.
discs on.
They
So-
actually did.
About 3 years
So
ago,
we're
I
gonna avoid
went and
it.
started the